You can listen to them and repeat them as many times as you like. You will be talked through each new vocabulary item and given handy hints on how to remember them. Then, you'll hear the new language used in short conversations. First, you will practice listening to help you to pick out the key words and phrases and understand the gist of the conversations. After that, you'll have a chance to try some of the phrases yourself. This step-by-step approach is designed to build your confidence in understanding and speaking. Revision of the key words and phrases is built into the course, with a review section at the end of each unit. At the end of each CD, there is also a mo ichido, one more time section, which reintroduces the key words and phrases in each unit so that you can revise and check what you know and decide whether you need to go back and listen to any of it again. At the beginning of the first few units, and again at the beginning of each CD, there will be a section called Tuning into Japanese. These sections are there to switch your brain onto how Japanese sounds and to get you used to hearing it. If you're already feeling tuned in, then you can skip these tracks and move straight on to the new material. At times during the course, there will be sections after the review called Taking It Further. Taking It Further sections are an opportunity for you to try out some dialogues and to expand your vocabulary a little beyond the key structures covered in the unit. If you feel that you have enough to cope with already from the key words and phrases, then skip them for now. You can always come back to them later when you're feeling more confident. The accompanying booklet contains the key phrases and selected conversations for each unit, with translations for easy reference. It also gives learning tips, lots of cultural information, some extra vocabulary, and simple explanations of how Japanese works. You don't need to use the booklet, but it's there if you want it. So, let's get started. Track 2. Unit 1, Greetings. Key phrases. The first thing you're going to need to do is to say hello when you meet people. So your first keywords and phrases are all based around introductions. Listen carefully.
こんにちは。
Hello.
3.
Mr., Mrs. or Miss.
おはようございます。
Good morning.
はじめまして。
How do you do?
どうぞよろしく。
Pleased to meet you. Now let's look at the first 3 of these phrases one at a time. Let's start with hello. Konnichiwa. You're going to hear it 3 times. When you hear this sound, there will be a gap for you to repeat it. Konnichiwa.
こんにちは。
こんにちは。
Konnichiwa is a greeting used mainly in the late morning and in the afternoon, and it can be said to anyone. People often bow while saying konnichiwa to show their respect. Japanese is relatively easy to speak because any slight mispronunciation will not affect its meaning. If you find it difficult to remember this new word, try saying corn itchy wow quickly. Think of corns making your feet itchy when you say hello. Try it. Konnichiwa.
こんにちは。
こんにちは。
When someone says konnichiwa to you, you should reply by saying konnichiwa back to them. Next, let's look at the word for Mr., Mrs. or Miss, which is san. In Japanese, Mr., Mrs. or Miss comes after the name. Listen to these 2 people greeting each other.
こんにちは、田中さん。
こんにちは、山田さん。
Listen to them again and see if you can pick out their names.
こんにちは、田中さん。
こんにちは、山田さん。
They were Mr. Tanaka and Mrs. Yamada. Practice it. San.
3. 田中さん。
山田さん。
You can use san with someone's first or family name. It usually pays to err on the side of formality in Japan, however, so if in doubt, use family names. We are going to use family names throughout this course. Using san after someone's name is a sign of respect, so never use san with your own name. Now listen to these two and see if you can pick out their names.
こんにちは、鈴木さん。
こんにちは、本田さん。
They were Suzuki-san, Mr. Suzuki, and Honda-san, Miss Honda. These may sound familiar to you because they are the names of some famous Japanese car manufacturers. Now let's learn how to say good morning in Japanese. The basic word is Ohayo. It sounds a little like the name of the US state Ohio, so this might help you to remember the word. Think of the US state of Ohio whenever you say good morning. Say it. Ohayo.
おはよ
おはよ
Listen to two friends greeting each other in the morning.
う。おはよう、田中さん。
う。おはよう、山田さん。
What they actually said was, "Good morning, Mr. Tanaka, and good morning, Mrs. Yamada." These people are good friends, but when you talk to older people, or if you are in a formal or business situation, it's better to say, "Ohayo gozaimasu," instead of just "Ohayo." Both mean good morning, but "Ohayo gozaimasu" is more polite. Say it. Ohayo gozaimasu.
おはようございます。
おはようございます。
Now listen to these two business associates greeting each other in the morning.
おはようございます。田中さん。
おはようございます。山田さん。
And when you say "Ohayo gozaimasu," you can bow to show your respect to the person you're addressing. So, they were the first three key phrases. How did you go? If you're feeling ready, move on to track 3 to practice them some more. And after that, we'll look at the rest of the key phrases for this unit. Track 3, Unit 1, Listening and Speaking. Listen to these people saying hello to Mr. Smith and to him responding.
こんにちは、スミスさん。
こんにちは、山田さん。
こんにちは、スミスさん。
こんにちは、本田さん。
Did you notice the Japanese pronunciation of the name Smith? Smith. Japanese doesn't normally allow for double consonants like SM, sm. You usually need to put a vowel between them. Also, Japanese doesn't have a th sound. In fact, there are a lot of English sounds that cannot be accommodated in Japanese, so when a Japanese person is saying your name, you can expect it to sound quite different. Now you be Mr. Smith. Mrs. Yamada is going to say hello to you. You're going to call her Yamada-san. Listen first.
こんにちは、スミスさん。
こんにちは、山田さん。
Okay, it's your turn now. Mrs. Yamada speaks first.
こんにちは、スミスさん。
Now you say hello to her. Try bowing when you say it.
こんにちは、山田さん。
Now Miss Honda is greeting you, but this time it's in the morning. Do you remember good morning in Japanese? You're calling each other by your family names, so let's use the more formal form, Ohayo gozaimasu. And you're going to call her Honda-san. Listen first.
おはようございます、スミスさん。
おはようございます、本田さん。
Now it's your turn. Miss Honda speaks first.
おはようございます、スミスさん。
おはようございます、本田さん。
Remember, you've learnt 2 ways of saying good morning. If you are greeting your close friends, you can just say Ohayo. And if you are talking to older people, or if you want to sound polite, you should say Ohayo gozaimasu. Mr., Mrs. and Miss are all san. And remember, san goes after the person's name. Well done! That was all about saying hello and good morning. The next track is about saying how do you do and pleased to meet you. Track 4, Unit 1, key phrases. How do you do is hajimemashite in Japanese. It literally means for the first time, so use it only when you meet people for the first time. Try it. Hajimemashite.
はじめまして。
はじめまして。
When someone says hajimemashite to you, say hajimemashite back to them. Listen to these people saying hajimemashite to each other.
山田さん、はじめまして。
田中さん、はじめまして。
Now imagine you are Mr. Smith. Mrs. Yamada says, "How do you do" to you?
スミスさん、はじめまして。
Say "How do you do" to Mrs. Yamada. Start with her name, Yamada-san. Try it. Yamada-san, hajimemashite. Now say "How do you do" to Miss Honda. She speaks first.
スミスさん、はじめまして。
Start with her name, Honda-san.
本田さん、はじめまして。
A phrase that is often used alongside hajimemashite is "dozo yoroshiku," which means "pleased to meet you." The literal meaning of "dozo yoroshiku" is "please be nice to me." If someone says this phrase to you, it is polite to say it back to them. Try saying it. "Dozo yoroshiku."
どうぞよろしく。
どうぞよろしく。
Now imagine you are Mr. Smith again. Mrs. Yamada says, "Pleased to meet you" to you.
スミスさん、どうぞよろしく。
Say "pleased to meet you" to Mrs. Yamada. Start with her name, Yamada-san. Try it. Yamada-san, どうぞよろしく. Now say, "Pleased to meet you" to Miss Honda. She speaks first.
スミスさん、どうぞよろしく。
Start with her name, Honda-san.
本田さん、どうぞよろしく。
Now let's put all of that together. If you were greeting Mr. Tanaka for the first time, what would you say in Japanese? Remember, Mr. Tanaka is Tanaka-san. How do you do is hajimemashite, and pleased to meet you is dozo yoroshiku. Try it step by step.
田中さん、はじめまして。どうぞよろしく。
And now all together.
田中さん、はじめまして。どうぞよろしく。
To which he would reply,
スミスさん、はじめまして。どうぞよろしく。
That's probably enough for the very first unit. Now you can check what you've learnt so far by going on to the review on Track 5. Track 5, Unit 1, Review. You may not feel you've learnt much, but you've really learnt quite a lot. You know the greeting konnichiwa for late in the morning and afternoon, and ohayo gozaimasu for in the morning. And you know the casual morning greeting, ohayo. You also know how do you do, hajimemashite, and pleased to meet you, dozo yoroshiku. You know that san means Mr., Mrs., or Miss. You know that it comes after the person's name, and that it is used with either a first or family name, depending on the situation. Well done. Are you ready to move on? If you're feeling overwhelmed, take a break. But if you're ready for more, then let's get straight on with Unit 2. Track 6, Unit 2, Tuning into Japanese. Before we meet your new keywords and phrases, let's just practice what you know already. Copy the pronunciation as closely as you can. You can say hello. Remember konnichiwa, konnichiwa.
こんにちは。
You can also say good morning to your close friends and family. Remember the US state Ohio? Ohio.
おはよ
And if you want to say good morning more politely, you say ohayo gozaimasu.
おはようございます。
If you want to say hello to Mr. Tanaka, you say konnichiwa Tanaka-san.
こんにちは、田中さん。
And a polite good morning to Mrs. Yamada would be ohayo gozaimasu Yamada-san.
おはようございます山田さん
If you meet someone for the first time and want to say how do you do, you say hajimemashite.
はじめまして。
And finally, you also know pleased to meet you. どうぞよろしく.
どうぞよろしく。
Can you remember most of that? Are you ready for some more? If you're still not quite sure, go back and listen to Unit 1 again. Track 7, Unit 2, Attracting Attention. Key phrases. Until your Japanese is good enough for you to hold full conversations, it will be important for you to find people who can speak English to help you. Of course, you could just ask in English, but it's useful to know how to ask people in Japanese because, although they might not speak English themselves, they might understand what you are saying and be able to find someone who does. Here are your key words and phrases for Unit 2.
すみません。
Excuse me, or sorry.
英語がわかりますか？
Do you understand English?
はい、わかります。
Yes, I understand.
いいえ、わかりません。
No, I don't understand. Now let's look more carefully at each phrase. In Japanese, it is polite to say excuse me before asking questions, and excuse me is sumimasen.
すみません。
すみません
Do you understand English is 英語がわかりますか? English is 英語. For English and go means language. It sounds a bit like 8 go. Think of 8 people going somewhere when you say English. Say it. 英語.
英語。
英語
わかります means understand. Say it. わかります.
わかります。
わかります
To make a question in Japanese, you add ka to the end of the sentence. It's like a spoken question mark. Nothing else has to change. It's easy. Try it. わかりますか?
わかりますか？
わかりますか
Without the ka, the sentence わかります simply means understand. Adding the ka turns it into a question. Do you understand? Did you notice that there is no actual word for I or you here? In Japanese, you don't need to say words like I or you if it is obvious who or what is being talked about. To ask, do you understand English, you don't need the word for you, but you do need an extra Japanese word, ga, between eigo and wakarimasu. So it's eigo ga wakarimasu ka? Japanese often has these little words, which we call markers. Don't worry about them. Just try to learn them as part of the phrases. If you want to know more about markers, you can read about them in the booklet. Let's practice the whole phrase, do you understand English?
英語がわかりますか？
English ga understand question. Try it. 英語がわかりますか？
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 Before you ask a question, it's polite to say, excuse me. So now you're going to say, excuse me, do you understand English? Can you remember how to say excuse me?
すみません。
Then ask, do you understand English? 英語がわかりますか? Now put it all together and you have すみません。英語がわかりますか?
すみません。英語がわかりますか？
すみません。英語がわかりますか？
Now you've asked the question, you'd better understand the answer. Here is the question again.
すみません。英語がわかりますか？
And here are two different answers.
はい、わかります。
Yes, I understand.
いいえ、わかりません。
No, I don't understand. Did you hear the difference? The first difference is はい and いいえ. はい means yes and いいえ means no. Hi sounds like the English greeting hi. Japanese people often nod when saying this. いいえ sounds a bit like the English word yeah, which is so opposed to its English meaning as to make it quite easy to remember. Try saying yes in Japanese with a nod. はい.
はい。
はい、
Now say no. Shake your head when you say it. いいえ.
いいえ。
いいえ。
The second difference is わかります and わかりません. As you know, わかります means understand. When the last part ます becomes ません, it makes it negative. So, わかりません is not understand. わかりません.
わかりません。
わかりません。
Some people might say sorry instead of no when they don't understand. And sorry in Japanese is すみません. Yes, you have met this word already. It also means excuse me. So, すみません has two meanings, excuse me and sorry. And it is likely to mean sorry if someone says it apologetically. Try saying, sorry, I don't understand. すみません。わかりません。
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 Track 8, Unit 2, Listening and Speaking. Listen to these people. Do they speak English?
すみません。英語がわかりますか？
いいえ、わかりません。
No, he doesn't. He says no, not understand. いいえ is no, and わかりません is not understand. So he can't help you. Let's try this lady.
すみません。英語がわかりますか？
はい、わかります。
Yes, she does. She says yes, understand. はい is yes, and わかります is understand. Now someone else approaches you and asks you a question. You'll need to know that Nihongo means Japanese. Nihon is Japan, and you already know go is language, as in eigo, English. So, Japan language, or Japanese, is Nihongo.
すみません。日本語がわかりますか？
Excuse me, Japanese understand question? Which means, do you understand Japanese? Well, not yet, so you'd better say, no, I don't understand. Try to answer. Say, no. いいえ. And you don't need to say I, so just say, not understand. わかりません. Now put it all together. いいえ、わかりません.
すみません。日本語がわかりますか？
Answer again, but this time say sorry instead of no first. Remember, sorry is すみません. So you're going to say すみません、わかりません. Did you get all that? That was quite a lot to take in. Japanese words seem rather long and bewildering at first, but don't worry. You'll soon begin to notice patterns, and then remembering them should become easier. Practice makes perfect. So let's move on to track 9 to review what you've learned. Track 9, Unit 2, Review. Listen to these phrases and think of what they mean in English.
すみません。
英語がわかりますか？
日本語がわかりますか？
はい、
いいえ。
わかります。
わかりません。
And here is what they were saying.
すみません。
Excuse me, or sorry.
英語がわかりますか？
Do you understand English?
日本語がわかりますか？
Do you understand Japanese?
はい、
Yes.
いいえ。
No.
わかります。
I understand.
わかりません。
I don't understand. And if you managed all that, it's time for you to take a break. Well done. Track 10, Unit 3, Tuning into Japanese. Before we start, let's make sure you've tuned your ear into Japanese. One of the most difficult things in any new language is learning to listen. We're all so good at our own languages that we can fill in a lot of words without actually having to listen to them. So we don't listen properly because we don't need to. Did you know that when we speak to someone on the phone, only a part of what is said is transmitted to our ear, and our brain fills in the rest? Unfortunately, we can't do that with a new language, so we have to listen to everything, and at first it all seems to run together. The best thing to do is to listen and listen and listen until you start to be able to pick words and phrases out of the flood of language. You know all these words and phrases, so think of what they mean as you hear them.
おはようございます。
はじめまして。
どうぞよろしく。
すみません。
英語がわかりますか？
はい、わかります。
いいえ、わかりません。
And they meant,
おはようございます。
good morning.
はじめまして。
How do you do?
どうぞよろしく。
Pleased to meet you.
すみません。
Excuse me, or sorry.
英語がわかりますか？
Do you understand English?
はい、わかります。
Yes, I understand.
いいえ、わかりません。
No, I don't understand. Not sure of some of the words and phrases? Listen to this track again until they are all sounding familiar and you can understand them without too much difficulty. Ready for some more? Go on to track 11. Track 11, Unit 3, Nationalities. Key phrases. When visiting Japan, people are likely to be interested in where you're from. So let's learn some key phrases so you can tell them.
私、
I,
イギリス
the UK,
人
person,
です。
is, am, or are,
私はイギリス人です。
I'm British,
スミスさんはイギリス人ですか？
Mr. Smith, are you British?
はい、そうです。
Yes, that's right.
いいえ、違います。
No, that's incorrect. To say what nationality you are, you use the name of your country and add the little word jin, which means person. For instance, the Japanese word for the UK is igirisu. So UK person or British will be igirisujin. The USA is America in Japanese, so USA person or American is Amerikajin. As we mentioned in Unit 1, many English names and words adopted into Japanese will sound a little different, so when you're repeating them, try to say them the Japanese way. Try it. First, let's say British. Igirisujin.
イギリス人、
イギリス人、
Next is American. Amerikajin.
アメリカ人、
アメリカ人、
Now how about some other nationalities? Australia is Australia, so Australian is Australiajin.
オーストラリア人、
オーストラリア人、
Canada is easy. It's Canada. And Canadian is Canadajin.
カナダ人、
カナダ人、
New Zealand is quite a difficult word for the Japanese to say. It's New Zealand, and a New Zealander is New Zealandojin.
ニュージーランド人、
ニュージーランド人、
Now how about Irish? Ireland is Airlando. So yes, Irish is Airlandojin. Say it. Airlandojin.
アイルランド人、
アイルランド人、
To say I'm British in Japanese, you say 私はイギリス人です. 私 is I. イギリス人 is British. And です means is, am or are. So you literally say I, British, am. 私はイギリス人です. You might have noticed the little word wa, which crept in after watashi. Wa is a marker like the ga in 英語がわかりますか? To find out more about wa and ga, look in the booklet. But for now, all you need to know is that wa tells you the topic being talked about. And if the topic is yourself, then you'll say 私は.
私は、
私は、
Say British am. イギリス人です.
イギリス人です。
イギリス人です。 イギリス人です。
イギリス人です。 And now all together, 私はイギリス人です。
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 Now let's learn how to ask questions. Do you remember how to ask, do you speak English? That's right. It's 英語がわかりますか? The ka at the end of the sentence turns it into a question. So, to ask someone if they are British, you say, イギリス人ですか? Remember that in Japanese, it is rare to use the word for you. So you don't actually say, are you British? If it is clear who the question is directed at, it can be left out entirely, as it was in 英語がわかりますか? English understand. And if it's not entirely clear, use the person's name. So, when asking Mr. Smith if he's British, the literal question will be, Mr. Smith British is? It may seem a little odd to begin with, having someone use your name when talking directly to you, but you'll soon get used to it. So suppose you are Mr. Smith, and Mrs. Yamada asks you whether you are British or not. She asks, Mr. Smith British is? Question.
スミスさんはイギリス人ですか?
Now you've been asked the question, if you are British, you need to say yes in Japanese. Remember, it sounds similar to the English greeting hi. Say it. Hi.
はい、
はい、
Then you can say, I am British. Remember, I is watashi. Follow it with wa, then British is イギリス人, and am is です. Try it. 私はイギリス人です.
私はイギリス人です。
And put it all together.
はい、私はイギリス人です。
And if you don't want to say all of that, you can simply answer そうです. そうです means that's right. It's a very useful phrase because it can be used as a response to lots of different questions. Say, yes, that's right. はい、そうです.
はい、そうです。
はい、そうです。
But what if you aren't British? Then you need to say, no, that's incorrect. No in Japanese is いいえ, and incorrect is 違います. Say it. 違います.
違います。
And together, いいえ、違います.
いいえ、違います。
いいえ、違います。
Had enough for now? Then take a break. Ready for some more? Then let's go on to track 12 to put what you've learnt into practice. Track 12, Unit 3, Listening and Speaking. Here are Miss Honda and Mr. Smith. Where is Mr. Smith from?
こんにちは、スミスさん。
こんにちは、本田さん。
すみません。スミスさんはイギリス人ですか?
はい、そうです。
So Mr. Smith is British. Now, Mrs. Yamada is asking Miss Green where she's from.
こんにちは、グリーンさん。
こんにちは、山田さん。
すみません、グリーンさんはイギリス人ですか?
いいえ、私はアメリカ人です。
Miss Green is American, not British. Now, Mr. Suzuki is asking Mrs. Taylor where she's from.
こんにちは、テイラーさん。
こんにちは、鈴木さん。
テイラーさんはカナダ人ですか?
いいえ、違います。私はアイルランド人です。
So Mrs. Taylor isn't Canadian, she's Irish. Now you say your nationality. Start with 私は. If you're British, you should have said,
私はイギリス人です。
say your nationality again. You want to ask Mr. Tanaka if he's Japanese. Firstly, how do you say Japanese? You already know a word for Japanese, but that's Japan language, Nihongo. Nihon is Japan and go is language. Instead of Japan language, we want to say Japan person. So take off the go and add jin. Nihonjin. Say it. Nihonjin. Now ask, Mr. Tanaka Japanese is question? Tanaka-san wa Nihonjin desu ka?
田中さんは日本人ですか？
Say, yes, that's right. Yes is hai. That's right is so desu. Put it together.
はい、そうです。
How about no, incorrect? No is iie. And incorrect is chigaimasu. Put it together.
いいえ、違います。
Do you need to go over that again? There were quite a lot of new words. The next track will review what you've just learnt, so move on if you're ready. And after the review, you can try taking it further, with some dialogue practice and extra vocab if you want to. But don't worry, you can always skip it or come back to it later on. Track 13, Unit 3, Review. Can you remember what each of these phrases means?
私、
I.
私はイギリス人です。
I'm British.
スミスさんはイギリス人ですか？
Mr. Smith, are you British?
はい、そうです。
Yes, that's right.
いいえ、違います。
No, that's incorrect. Now see if you can say the Japanese for each of them. I.
私、
I'm British.
私はイギリス人です。
Mr. Smith, are you British?
スミスさんはイギリス人ですか？
Yes, that's right.
はい、そうです。
No, that's incorrect.
いいえ、違います。
If you knew all of that, then you're ready to move on to the next track and try out some dialogues. If you are still unsure of some of it, then take a break, and when you're ready, go back and listen to Unit 3 once more. Remember, practice makes perfect. Track 14, Unit 3, Taking It Further. Dialogue 1. Listen to Mr. Brown and Mrs. Yamada greeting each other. Don't expect to be able to pick out all the words the first time, but see how much you can understand.
こんにちは、ブラウンさん。
こんにちは、山田さん。
すみません、ブラウンさんはニュージーランド人ですか？
はい、私はニュージーランド人です。
そうですか。
Let's hear that dialogue again, step by step.
こんにちは、ブラウンさん。
こんにちは、山田さん。
Mrs. Yamada and Mr. Brown greet each other. Remember, san can be used for Mr., Mrs., or Miss. Next, Mrs. Yamada says,
すみません。
It's always polite to say excuse me before asking a question. Then Mrs. Yamada asks,
ブラウンさんはニュージーランド人ですか？
Mr. Brown, New Zealand person is, question? Or, Mr. Brown, are you a New Zealander? And he replies,
はい、私はニュージーランド人です。
Yes, I am a New Zealander. Then Mrs. Yamada uses a new phrase.
そうですか。
You already know そうです as in はいそうです. Yes, that's right. The ka on the end turns it into a question. So そうですか means is that right? But here, ka isn't really questioning. It goes down at the end. This is because it's just an acknowledgement to show interest in what the other person has told you. It's a rhetorical question like, is that so? Really? Or even, oh, I see. No answer is expected. This is a very useful expression and you will hear it a lot. Say, is that right? そうですか? Say it again and think of what it means as you say it. そうですか?
そうですか。
そうですか。
Next, you're going to take part in the dialogue. So do you want to listen one more time? You're going to be Mr. Brown first, and then you're going to do it again and be Mrs. Yamada. Listen carefully.
こんにちは、ブラウンさん。
こんにちは、山田さん。
すみません。ブラウンさんはニュージーランド人ですか？
はい、私はニュージーランド人です。
そうですか。
Now it's your turn to take Mr. Brown's part.
こんにちは、ブラウンさん。
Say, hello, Mrs. Yamada.
こんにちは、山田さん。
すみません。ブラウンさんはニュージーランド人ですか？
Say, yes, I am a New Zealander. Remember, yes is hai and I is watashi.
はい、私はニュージーランド人です。
そうですか。
Now take Mrs. Yamada's part. You start the conversation by saying, hello, Mr. Brown.
こんにちは、ブラウンさん。
こんにちは、山田さん。
Say, excuse me, Mr. Brown, are you a New Zealander?
すみません。ブラウンさんはニュージーランド人ですか？
はい、私はニュージーランド人です。
Say, is that right?
そうですか。
Track 15, Unit 3, Taking It Further. Dialogue 2. Let's listen to another dialogue, this time between Mr. Smith and Miss Honda.
こんにちは、スミスさん。
こんにちは、本田さん。
すみません。スミスさんはオーストラリア人ですか？
いいえ、違います。私はイギリス人です。本田さんは？
私は日本人です。
そうですか。
Let's hear that dialogue again, step by step.
こんにちは、スミスさん。
こんにちは、本田さん。
They say hello to one another. Then Miss Honda asks,
すみません。スミスさんはオーストラリア人ですか？
Excuse me, Mr. Smith, are you Australian? And he replies,
いいえ、違います。私はイギリス人です。
いいえ is no, 違います is incorrect, watashi is I, イギリス人 means British, and です means am. So Mr. Smith replied, no, that's incorrect. I'm British. And then he adds,
本田さんは？
a person's name followed by a questioning wa means, and you? Remember that Japanese people avoid using the word you, and they usually use the person's name instead. So where we would ask, and you, the Japanese say, and Miss Honda, Honda-san wa?
本田さんは？
And Miss Honda replies,
私は日本人です。
I Japan person am, or I'm Japanese. 私は日本人です. To which Mr. Smith responds,
そうですか。
which means, is that right? Now listen again.
こんにちは、スミスさん。
こんにちは、本田さん。
すみません。スミスさんはオーストラリア人ですか？
いいえ、違います。私はイギリス人です。本田さんは？
私は日本人です。
そうですか。
Let's practice the dialogue. You're going to be Mr. Smith.
こんにちは、スミスさん。
Say, hello, Miss Honda.
こんにちは、本田さん。
すみません。 スミスさんはオーストラリア人ですか？
Say, no, that's incorrect. Remember, no sounds like the English word yeah.
いいえ、違います。
Say, I'm British. Remember, I is watashi, and don't forget the wa.
私はイギリス人です。
Now ask, and you, Miss Honda?
本田さんは？
私は日本人です。
And to acknowledge her response, say, is that right? Let your voice drop on the ka.
そうですか。
And that's it. You've made it through your first taking it further. Whenever you're ready for some more, move on to Unit 4, where you'll learn how to talk about your job. Track 16, Unit 4, Occupations. Key phrases. Whether you are in Japan for business or pleasure, people will probably be interested in your occupation. Here are some key phrases.
会社員。
Company employee.
私は会社員です。
I'm a company employee.
コリンズの会社員。
A Collins employee.
私はコリンズの会社員です。
I'm a Collins employee.
スミスさんは会社員ですか？
Mr. Smith, are you a company employee? And here are some other common professions. You'll also find a few more listed in the booklet if you want to have a look.
学生、
Student,
教師、
teacher,
公務員、
civil servant.
エンジニア。
Of course, that's an engineer. Now, can you remember how to say your nationality? Start with watashi wa. If you are British, you should have said
私はイギリス人です。
Using the same structure, you can also say your occupation. Just replace your nationality with your job. Easy. So suppose you are a company employee. What do you say? You start with I, watashi wa, and then say company employee, kaishain, and finally am, desu. Watashi wa kaishain desu. Try it. Watashi wa kaishain desu.
私は会社員です。
私は会社員です。
Now let's try saying I'm a student. Student is 学生.
学生、
私は学生です。
And teacher is 教師.
教師。
私は教師です。
How about a civil servant? 公務員.
公務員、
私は公務員です。
Now this one sounds very similar to English. Engineer. Say engineer, but make sure you say it the Japanese way.
エンジニア。
私はエンジニアです。
If you want to give some more information, such as which company you work for, you say the company name before kaishain and put the little word no between them. For example, a Collins employee is Korinzu no kaishain. Let's practice. Collins employee is Korinzu no kaishain.
コリンズの会社員、
私はコリンズの会社員です。
How about saying you're an English teacher? English, 英語 provides more information about what kind of teacher, or kyoshi, you are. So put eigo in front of kyoshi and add a no between them. Eigo no kyoshi. Try it. Eigo no kyoshi.
英語の教師。
私は英語の教師です。
Now let's learn how to ask and answer questions about people's jobs. You know how easy it is to make a question. You just add the question mark ka to the end of the sentence. And you know how to use the name of the person you're talking to rather than you. Suppose you are Mr. Smith and someone asks you if you're a company employee. They'd ask, スミスさんは会社員ですか? Try it.
スミスさんは会社員ですか?
To answer, yes, that's right, start with はい meaning yes, and then add そうです. That's right. Say it. はい、そうです.
はい、そうです。
But if you aren't a company employee, you can say, no, that's incorrect. いいえ、違います. Here is the question again.
スミスさんは会社員ですか?
Say that you're not.
いいえ、違います。
Track 17, Unit 4, Listening and Speaking. Listen to this conversation. Can you tell what Mr. Smith does for a living?
こんにちは、スミスさん。
こんにちは、山田さん。
スミスさんは会社員ですか?
はい、そうです。
So, Mr. Smith works for a company. What about these two?
こんにちは、グリーンさん。
こんにちは、山田さん。
グリーンさんは学生ですか?
いいえ、違います。私は公務員です。山田さんは?
私はエンジニアです。
So, Miss Green isn't a student, she's a civil servant. And Mrs. Yamada, she's an engineer. Now, Miss Honda and Mr. Suzuki are talking about their occupations. Listen to what they say.
すみません。鈴木さんはコリンズの会社員ですか?
いいえ、違います。私は英語の教師です。
そうですか。
Miss Honda asked Mr. Suzuki whether he was a Collins employee. His answer was, no, that's incorrect. I'm an English teacher. Now imagine you're Mr. Smith. Mrs. Yamada is going to ask you a question.
すみません。スミスさんは英語の教師ですか?
First say, yes, that's right.
はい、そうです。
Now say, no, that's incorrect.
いいえ、違います。
And tell her what you actually do for a living. You could have said,
私は会社員です。
well done. Now it's time to review what you've learnt in Unit 4. Can you remember it all? Move on to Track 18 to find out. Track 18, Unit 4, Review. Listen to these words and phrases and think of what they mean.
こんにちは。
私は会社員です。
私はコリンズの会社員です。
田中さんは会社員ですか?
はい、そうです。
いいえ、違います。
そうですか。
山田さんは?
And here is what they were saying.
こんにちは。
Hello.
私は会社員です。
I'm a company employee.
私はコリンズの会社員です。
I'm a Collins employee.
田中さんは会社員ですか?
Mr. Tanaka, are you a company employee?
はい、そうです。
Yes, that's right.
いいえ、違います。
No, that's incorrect.
そうですか。
Is that right?
山田さんは?
And you, Mrs. Yamada? And that's the end of Unit 4. How did you do? If you found you were making mistakes, it might be an idea to take a break and then go over the unit again. But if you're ready for more, Then why not move on to the next section, もう一度, where we will review everything you've learnt on this CD. Or you can move straight on to CD 2, where we'll be looking at travelling and buying tickets. Track 19, もう一度. もう一度 means one more time. This section gives you the opportunity to listen to all the key words and phrases in Units 1 to 4 once more and to practice the dialogues without all the step-by-step explanations. Unit 1, Greetings. Key phrases. Listen and think of what the following words and phrases mean.
こんにちは。3、田中さん。おはよう。おはようございます。はじめまして。どうぞよろしく。
Can you put them back into Japanese? Hello.
こんにちは。
Mr., Mrs. or Miss.
3、
Mr. Tanaka.
田中さん。
Good morning. First, say it to a good friend.
おはよ
And now say it more politely.
おはようございます。
How do you do?
う。はじめまして。
Pleased to meet you.
どうぞよろしく。
Track 20. もう一度. Unit 1. Dialogues. Dialogue 1. Listen to the following dialogue and then play your part.
こんにちは、スミスさん。
こんにちは、山田さん。
Your turn. You be Mr. Smith.
こんにちは、スミスさん。
Say hello to Mrs. Yamada.
こんにちは、山田さん。
Dialogue 2. Listen.
おはようございます、スミスさん。
おはようございます、本田さん。
Now it's your turn. You're Mr. Smith again.
おはようございます、スミスさん。
Say good morning to Miss Honda.
おはようございます、本田さん。
Dialogue 3. Listen first.
スミスさん、はじめまして。
山田さん、はじめまして。
Now take Mr. Smith's part in the dialogue.
スミスさん、はじめまして。
Say how do you do to Mrs. Yamada.
山田さん、はじめまして。
Dialogue 4. Listen.
スミスさん、どうぞよろしく。
本田さん、どうぞよろしく。
And now you be Mr. Smith again.
スミスさん、どうぞよろしく。
Say pleased to meet you to Miss Honda.
本田さん、どうぞよろしく。
Track 21. もう一度. Unit 2. Attracting attention. Key phrases. Listen and think of what these mean.
すみません。英語がわかりますか？はい、わかります。いいえ、わかりません。
Now see if you can put them back into Japanese. Excuse me or sorry.
すみません。
Do you understand English?
英語がわかりますか？
Yes, I understand.
はい、わかります。
No, I don't understand.
いいえ、わかりません。
Track 22. もう一度. Unit 2. Dialogues. Dialogue 1. Listen.
すみません。英語がわかりますか？
はい、わかります。
Your turn. Say, excuse me.
すみません。
Then ask if he understands English.
英語がわかりますか？
Now put it together.
すみません。 英語がわかりますか？
はい、わかります。
Dialogue 2. Listen. A man asks whether you understand Japanese.
すみません。日本語がわかりますか？
すみません。わかりません。
Your turn.
すみません。日本語がわかりますか？
Say, sorry.
すみません。
Say, not understand.
わかりません。
And say it all together.
すみません。わかりません。
Track 23. もう一度. Unit 3. Nationalities. Key phrases. Do you remember what these phrases mean?
私はイギリス人です。スミスさんはイギリス人ですか？はい、そうです。いいえ、違います。
And here are some extra phrases from the Taking It Further section. Can you think of what they mean?
田中さんは？そうですか。
Now you say them. First say, I'm British.
私はイギリス人です。
Now ask, Mr. Smith, are you British?
スミスさんはイギリス人ですか？
Yes, that's right.
はい、そうです。
No, that's incorrect.
いいえ、違います。
And you, Mr. Tanaka?
田中さんは？
Is that right?
そうですか。
Track 24. もう一度. Unit 3. Dialogues. Dialogue 1. Listen.
こんにちは、ブラウンさん。
こんにちは、山田さん。
すみません。ブラウンさんはニュージーランド人ですか？
はい、私はニュージーランド人です。
そうですか。
Your turn. Say hello to Mr. Brown.
こんにちは、ブラウンさん。
こんにちは、山田さん。
Say, excuse me, Mr. Brown, are you a New Zealander?
すみません。ブラウンさんはニュージーランド人ですか？
はい、私はニュージーランド人です。
Say, is that right?
そうですか。
Dialogue 2. Listen.
こんにちは、スミスさん。
こんにちは、本田さん。
すみません。スミスさんはオーストラリア人ですか？
いいえ、違います。私はイギリス人です。本田さんは？
私は日本人です。
そうですか。
Your turn. You be Mr. Smith.
こんにちは、スミスさん。
Say hello to Miss Honda.
こんにちは、本田さん。
すみません。スミスさんはオーストラリア人ですか？
Say, no, that's incorrect.
いいえ、違います。
Tell her that you're English.
私はイギリス人です。
Now ask, and you, Miss Honda?
本田さんは？
私は日本人です。
Say, is that right?
そうですか。
Track 25. もう一度. Unit 4. Occupations. Key phrases. Listen to the following phrases. Think of what they mean.
私は会社員です。私はコリンズの会社員です。私は英語の教師です。スミスさんは会社員ですか？はい、そうです。いいえ、違います。
Now you say them. I'm a company employee.
私は会社員です。
I'm a Collins employee.
私はコリンズの会社員です。
I'm an English teacher.
私は英語の教師です。
Mr. Smith, are you a company employee?
スミスさんは会社員ですか？
Yes, that's right.
はい、そうです。
No, that's incorrect.
いいえ、違います。
Track 26. もう一度 Unit 4 Dialogues. Dialogue 1. Listen.
こんにちは、スミスさん。
こんにちは、山田さん。
スミスさんは会社員ですか？
はい、そうです。
Now it's your turn.
こんにちは、スミスさん。
Say hello to Mrs. Yamada.
こんにちは、山田さん。
スミスさんは会社員ですか？
Tell her, yes, that's right.
はい、そうです。
Dialogue 2. Listen carefully.
こんにちは、グリーンさん。
こんにちは、山田さん。
グリーンさんは学生ですか？
いいえ、違います。私は公務員です。山田さんは？
私はエンジニアです。
Now you be Miss Green.
こんにちは、グリーンさん。
Say hello to Mrs. Yamada.
こんにちは、山田さん。
グリーンさんは学生ですか？
Say, no, that's incorrect. I'm a civil servant.
いいえ、違います。私は公務員です。
Ask her, and you?
山田さんは？
私はエンジニアです。
Dialogue 3. Listen.
すみません。鈴木さんはコリンズの会社員ですか？
いいえ、違います。私は英語の教師です。
そうですか。